Alright, let's jump right in. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to embark on a full tactical briefing of the towering, celestial mega-raid known as the Sky-Tethered Ruins. Now, if you've been following the overarching lore and endgame mechanics, you already know this isn't your standard dungeon crawl. No, this is an absolute masterclass in extreme environmental combat.
25. That represents 25 grueling levels of shattered celestial architecture, completely locked high up in the upper atmosphere. We're talking about a vertical ascension that forces players to navigate not just massive, overwhelming enemies, but environmental hazards built entirely around zero gravity, cosmic radiation, and sheer dizzying heights. It's a massive test of endurance, just as much as it is a test of pure skill.
So, here's our raid map for the climb today. We'll start with a Welcome to the Ruins, push through Zone 1 against Aegis Commander Vayne, ascend to Zone 2 to face Typhos the Dragon, navigate the upper gravity labyrinths, challenge the Grand Architect's projection, and then, finally, claim the ultimate loot.
Welcome to the Ruins Systemic Rules of the Ascent, because before we charge in blindly, we really need to understand the fundamental systemic mechanics that govern this entire floating structure. You definitely can't just hack and slash your way through the upper atmosphere.
Here is the truly crucial point about how progression and loot actually scale. You progress one level per chapter, earning your standard XP and loot after every single boss. But the major ship upgrades, which, let's be real, are the only reason elite guilds even attempt this, are strictly gated behind the massive zone, world, and final bosses. And the system makes you work for it. These bosses drop either a blueprint or a ship part, but literally never both. It totally ensures that unlocking the highest tiers of aerospace power requires repeated, flawless execution.
Zone 1, the Ascending Courtyard, facing Aegis Commander Vayne. Skipping past the early trash mob floors and minor encounters, we hit level 5 and our first major roadblock. The training wheels come completely off here as we face the zone boss, Aegis Commander Vayne, Guardian of the Lower Tether.
Vayne is a literal masterclass in escalating mechanics. He starts traditionally enough with Phase 1 halberd sweeps. These are heavy tank busters that mean your front line has to cycle their mitigations absolutely flawlessly. Then, he calls in elite shield-bearing Vanguard adds. But Phase 3 is where the environment aggressively turns against you. He deploys an anti-gravity field. Players literally lose their footing. If your team jumps or gets knocked up, poof, they float out of control. Once you're tumbling in the air, he brings up a shield wall of winds, forcing your ranged attackers to carefully snipe wind generators while completely adrift.
And if you somehow survive floating around like a balloon, you hit his terrifying enrage phase. Hurricane Strike. Vayne literally becomes a mobile tornado of blades. I mean, imagine trying to coordinate your Vanguard's positioning against a moving blender while your entire raid is still struggling with zero-gravity float mechanics. It takes a standard melee fight and turns it into a brutal, chaotic survival check.
Moving on to Zone 2, the Fractured Bastion, Typhos, the Cloud-Rendered Dragon. Ascending further through the ruins, past the void-touched gargoyles and sky-fisher leviathans, the stakes skyrocket at level 10. This is where we face our first true world boss.
Brace yourselves, because Typhos is a grueling 10-phase encounter. 10 phases! Fights of this length don't just test your build, they demand actual, real-life human stamina. It requires absolute perfection from every single roll in the raid for a seriously sustained period of time.
Just look at how brilliantly this escalates. In Phase 3, he doesn't just summon a few helpers. He unleashes a massive swarm of 50 flying wormlings that require intense area of effect coordination. By Phase 5, he hits you with the Roar of the Abyss, a 5-second raid-wide stun. Think about how long 5 seconds actually is when a dragon is actively dropping plasma bombs on your stunned healers. By Phase 8, physical damage dealers are totally useless because he phase shifts into an ethereal form. And it all ends in Phase 10 with the Maelstrom Core. Typhos roots in the center and becomes a giant vacuum. If your squad fails his final DPS check, the whole party gets sucked in and wiped entirely.
The upper gravity labyrinths, surviving the middle tiers. We obviously don't have time to cover every single inch of this massive structure today, so we have to strategically push right through the brutal middle tiers, specifically Zones 3 and 4. As we rapidly ascend through these zones, the hazards shift from brute draconic force to highly technical psychological warfare. In Zone 3, Kalen the Void Weaver deploys invisible gravity traps that instantly crush players who misstep. And in Zone 4, things get completely meta. The Preemptor doesn't just attack your avatar,
Phase 2 initiates a system override that literally hacks your player UI and scrambles your abilities. You are fighting the game's interface as much as the boss itself. Wild, right?
The Grand Architect's projection, custodian of the warp. Finally, we breach level 25, stepping out of the labyrinth and straight into the arena of the final boss.
Forget the 5 phases of a zone boss, or even the 10 phases of a world boss. 13. The Grand Architect throws an absolutely insane 13 phases of escalating reality manipulation right at your squad. It is easily one of the most mechanically dense endurance tests you will ever analyze. Right away in Phase 2, the Architect dictates the entire flow of the battle with a mechanic called Reality Fracture. He literally shatters the floor beneath your feet into 3 separate platforms. This physically forces the raid to divide forces across the void. It completely fractures your unified Vanguard, testing your sub-commander's ability to lead autonomously while separated by thin air. The mid-phases are an absolute masterclass in breaking player habits. Phase 7 drops time dilation, slashing everyone's movement and attack speed by 50%. Then, Phase 8 introduces Reversal of Fortune. This is wonderfully diabolical. Suddenly, your healing spells deal damage, and your damage spells heal. Your dedicated healers instantly become your biggest threats if they don't immediately stop casting. There is nothing quite like hearing your raid leader scream at the healers to stop doing their jobs. And you have to figure this out while dodging a massive Phase 9 orbital strike laser raining down from the blackout dome above.
Just when you think you've stabilized, exposed to Zenith Core, and pushed him to the brink, he hits you with Phase 11, System Purge. This is a catastrophic mechanic that instantly wipes all player buffs. Every defensive aura, every single speed boost, every stat enhancer you've carefully stacked, just gone. And he does this right before Phase 12, where he summons clones of the previous zone bosses, like Vayne, to overwhelm your newly defenseless team.
And it all culminates in this terrifying final Phase 13. The entire floating structure plummets. The Architect destroys the very tethers holding the dungeon in the sky. Your team must somehow coordinate to land the final kill shot on the boss while actively tumbling through the air in 0 gravity, all before the ruins hit the ground. No pressure. Claiming the ultimate loot, the spoils of the summit. If you somehow maintain your composure, survive the freefall, and shatter the Architect before impact, the rewards waiting for you are nothing short of legendary.
The system generously compensates you for the trauma, for sure. You get a massive injection of legendary raid clear XP, you earn millions of support XPs specifically for the Empyrean shipyards, which instantly elevates your guild's entire crafting economy. Plus, you secure incredibly rare materials like Executioner's Steel and Malicor's Frenzy Cores alongside Sovereign tier equipment.
But the real prize, the absolute primary reason any top-tier guild subjects themselves to these 25 levels is securing the astronavigation matrix. This sovereign FTL component is the literal key to deep space movement. Winning here doesn't just give you stats, it unlocks the entire cosmos for your faction.
Before we wrap up, it's fascinating to look at this comparison. When we contrast the Sky-Tethered Ruins with another Tier 4 mega raid, the Tartarus Crucible, we see wildly different design philosophies. The ruins are all about zero-gravity, celestial combat, and dizzying vertical ascension across 25 levels. Tartarus, on the other hand, is a grueling 30-floor subterranean downward spiral featuring literal permadeath deletion walls. It brilliantly shows just how wildly diverse and demanding these endgame tactical environments can actually be.
So I leave you with this final thought. How do you realistically prepare a 30-man team for a tactical fight where gravity itself is your greatest enemy? Think about it. How would you build your team's composition to survive a gauntlet where the very rules of reality, from UI interfaces to healing magic, are constantly glitching out from beneath your feet? Let that sink in. Keep strategizing, and thanks for joining me for this explainer.